He told me over a beer. I hadn't seen my best friend Kyle in over a year, since before I was deployed. We were sitting at our favorite bar, same spot near the back where the music wasn't too loud and the TV always played whatever game was on. I'd only been back home for 2 days. My wife, Haley, had been waiting for me at the airport with tears in her eyes and this huge smile that almost made me forget how miserable I'd felt all those months away. She jumped into my arms like it was a movie, whispered that she missed me every day, that she'd never stop loving me. I believed her. So that night, when Kyle leaned forward, his beer halfway to his lips, and said, "Man, I gotta tell you something," I figured it would be something dumb. Maybe a story about one of the guys from our group getting arrested, or that someone was getting married. I smiled and waited for him to go on, but his hand started shaking. He didn't look at me. He just stared at the condensation dripping down the side of his bottle like it was the most interesting thing in the world. And then, without meeting my eyes, he said, "I slept with Haley." My mind didn't register the words right away. I remember thinking, what? Is that a joke? Some sick kind of homecoming prank? But Kyle wasn't laughing. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said quickly, like trying to get ahead of my reaction. "It just happened. One time. And then, I don't know. It happened again. And again. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't hear the music anymore. I couldn't hear anything but the sound of blood rushing in my ears. My mouth was dry. I was staring at him like he'd grown a second head, and all I could think was, this is Kyle. He was the best man at our wedding. And Haley? My Haley? Before I left for deployment, she made me promise that we'd grow old together. She sat on our bed with tears in her eyes and told me she'd count the days until I came home. She wore my dog tags every day. She sent care packages like clockwork, cards with hearts drawn in the corners, little notes saying, "You're my only one." I think I said, "When?" Kyle sighed. "It started maybe a few months after you left. She came over crying one night, said she missed you so much she couldn't sleep." I didn't mean to let it go that far. But then she kept coming over. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to walk out. But mostly, I wanted to not believe him. So I asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were glassy. "Because I couldn't look you in the face again and lie. You're my brother, man. I screwed up the one thing that mattered. I don't expect forgiveness. But you needed to know. I left the bar without finishing my beer. I walked the 3 miles home because I didn't trust myself behind the wheel. My heart felt like someone had reached into my chest and crushed it in their fist. When I got home, Haley was waiting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching some reality show with the volume down low. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, you're back early." And I just stood there, looking at the woman who swore she'd never disappoint me. I didn't say anything for a full minute, just stared at her like she was someone I didn't recognize. Like a stranger had broken into my house, taken her face, and sat on our couch pretending nothing had happened. She tilted her head, that same soft look she always gave me when something was off. "Everything okay?" I sat down slowly, not next to her, but across the room. I didn't want to be close to her. I didn't even want to breathe the same air right then. I think she sensed something. She paused the TV and pulled the blanket tighter. "Did something happen?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to control my voice. "How long were you and Kyle sleeping together?" Everything stopped. She didn't say anything, didn't even blink. And that silence, right there, that was my answer. The kind of silence that fills a room with 1,000 invisible bricks. Heavy, suffocating, guilt in its rawest form. "Haley," I said again, my voice lower this time. "Tell me the truth." She blinked fast. Her mouth opened and closed like she was struggling to find words. Then her face crumpled, and she started crying. Not soft, graceful tears, ugly, panicked sobs that made her shake. "I didn't mean to," she said, over and over. "I didn't want to hurt you. I swear to God." I just stared. "You have no idea how lonely I was," she said between sobs. "I missed you so much. I didn't know how to deal with it. I hated myself every time. Every single time. I was numb. I should have yelled, should have stormed out, should have thrown something, but all I felt was this aching hollowness, like my bones had turned to dust." I asked, "Did you love him?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I love you." I never stopped. I was just broken. I didn't know how to fill that space while you were gone. "How many times?" She wiped her face and looked down. I don't know. A few. I mean, it wasn't. How many? She hesitated. 6. Maybe 7. I stood up. I didn't even remember standing. I walked out of the living room, through the kitchen, leaned my hands on the counter, and stared at the sink like it held answers. She followed me in, sobbing, reaching out like she was going to touch my arm, but stopped herself. Please don't leave. I need you. I don't want this to end. I made a horrible mistake, but I'm still yours. I couldn't even look at her. You weren't mine, I said quietly. Not when I needed you to be. That night, I slept in the guest room. Or tried to. I stared at the ceiling for hours while she cried herself to sleep in the room down the hall. I don't even remember closing my eyes. The next morning felt like walking through the wreckage after a storm. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. Haley was up before me, probably hoping to play house like everything could go back to normal if she just acted like it was. I came out of the guest room, still in yesterday's clothes, still in a fog. She turned when she saw me. I made breakfast. I didn't answer. Just grabbed a glass of water from the cupboard and sat at the table. She looked exhausted, eyes swollen, hair a mess, sweatshirt draped over her shoulders like armor. She placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of me like we were just two tired people trying to make a marriage work. I pushed the plate aside. We need to talk, I said. She sat across from me and folded her hands in her lap. Okay. I didn't even know where to begin. My thoughts were loud and tangled, memories of her waiting at the gate with a sign that said, "Welcome home, my love," and pictures of Kyle from our fishing trips flashing through my head. Birthdays, late-night drives. The way she always fell asleep on my chest. How could you do this to me? I finally asked. To us. She started crying again, but I didn't flinch this time. The tears didn't hit me like they did the night before. They felt rehearsed now. Like a shield. I was scared, she said. I didn't know how to be alone for that long. I tried to stay strong, but nothing, I snapped, louder than I meant to. You weren't alone. You had friends. You had family. You had Kyle. She looked down, shame on her face, but then something shifted. Her lips tightened. Her eyes hardened, just a little. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. But you left, okay? You went away. And I was stuck here, waiting, every day, alone. I stared at her. You're blaming me? I'm not, she paused. I'm just saying it's not black and white. You weren't here. I was hurting too. That's when I felt it. That slow, bitter rot that starts in the stomach and spreads up your spine. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't see my wife anymore. I saw someone who betrayed me and now had the nerve to justify it. You're not the victim, Haley, I said, my voice low. You don't get to hurt me and then cry because it was hard for you. She went quiet again, but not ashamed quiet, defensive quiet. I left the table, walked out onto the porch, and sat on the steps in the cold morning air. My hands were trembling. I didn't know what was worse, the betrayal or the fact that she was already rewriting the story in her head. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through pictures. Her smile, my uniform, her in my hoodie, holding a little sign that said, I'd wait forever for you. Lies. All of it. That day, I didn't talk to her much. I didn't yell. I didn't pack my bags. I just froze. Like if I stayed still long enough, the pain might settle into something I could live with. But deep down, I knew. The damage was done. The days that followed felt like walking through someone else's life. Haley was still there, making coffee, asking if I needed anything, leaving my favorite snacks on the counter like that was going to fix something. She texted me even when we were in the same house. Long messages about love, about regret, about rebuilding. I didn't respond to most of them. I couldn't. I was grieving. Not just her. Not just Kyle. I was grieving the life I thought I had. The woman I thought I married. The best friend I thought would have taken a bullet for me, but instead had no problem lying with my wife while I was 7,000 miles away carrying a rifle. And what hurt the most? They both acted like it just happened. Like it was a moment, a mistake, a small ripple in the ocean. But it wasn't. It was deliberate. It took time. They had chances, dozens of them, to stop. And they didn't. She made the choice every time. And so did he. One night, about a week after Kyle told me, I finally opened the box Haley had kept all my letters in. She used to write notes on the back of them. Things like, can't wait to read this again when you're home. Or, I'm counting the days until I'm back in your arms. I flipped through them one by one, and then I found it. A photo she'd sent me, her in one of my old shirts, curled up on the couch, smiling like she was warm just thinking about me. The date on the back? The same week Kyle said it started. I just sat there and stared. That was the moment it really broke. That was when I realized I wasn't living in a sad story. I was living in a lie. One that they both carefully propped up so I'd never see the cracks. One where I was the fool holding on to a dream while they got to live without consequence. I confronted her that night, held the photo up. This was the week you first slept with him. She didn't deny it. She just broke, covered her mouth and nodded. Eyes already brimming. I still loved you, she whispered. Even then, I swear to you, I never stopped. But you loved yourself more, I said. Silence. I wanted to scream. I wanted her to say something that made it make sense. Some missing piece that would explain how the woman who kissed me goodbye at the airport became the woman who betrayed me for over a year. But there was nothing. She kept saying, I'm sorry, over and over like it was a spell. But it didn't change the facts. It didn't bring back my trust, or my friend, or the man I used to be before all this. And then, just before she went upstairs, she said something I'll never forget. I just wish you knew how hard it was for me, being alone, not knowing if you'd come back. I felt abandoned. I stared at her. Just stared. Because for all the pain she caused me, she still found a way to turn herself into the wounded one. And somehow, that broke my heart even more than the affair itself. I started seeing things differently after that night. It was like I'd stepped out of the fog and finally saw her for who she really was, not the woman who'd waited for me, but the woman who had rewritten our entire story to protect her own image of herself. She kept trying in her own way, cooking more, cleaning obsessively, leaving notes on the mirror that said things like, we can heal, and still yours, always. But every time I looked at her, all I saw was a mirror cracking more and more. One morning, I found her crying in the bathroom, her makeup half applied, shoulders shaking. I stood in the doorway, unsure of what I was even supposed to feel anymore. She looked up, wiping her eyes. I don't know how to fix this, she said. I don't even know who I am anymore. And I said something I hadn't planned to say, something that surprised even me. I don't think you ever really knew. She looked like I'd slapped her. And I didn't mean it cruelly, I meant it honestly. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized Haley had spent our whole marriage playing the role of the perfect wife. The handwritten notes, the care packages, the cozy Sundays. But when I left, when the weight of real commitment hit her in the quiet, she broke. Because she didn't know how to live through the silence. That weekend, Carl texted me. I understand if you never want to see me again. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't reply. What would I even say? Thanks for the offer, but I'm busy picking up the shattered remains of my marriage you helped destroy. Instead, I sat in the garage, holding an old photo of us three, me, Haley, and Kyle, back when things were simple. Kyle had his arm around both of us. Haley was laughing. I was holding a beer and grinning like I had everything a man could want. That photo felt like it came from someone else's life. At some point that day, Haley came out to the garage. She stood a few feet away, quiet. Then she said, I think we need to go to counseling. I didn't respond. I know I don't deserve anything from you, she said, but I can't lose you. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll tell you everything you want to know. I'll be an open book. That's the thing about promises. They sound good after the damage is done, but they ring hollow. Like telling a house you won't light another match after it's already burned to the ground. Still, I nodded. Not because I forgave her. Not because I believed in us. I nodded because I needed to understand. I needed to know if any of it had been real, or if the whole marriage had been a performance. We started counseling the following week. She cried in every session, told the therapist how sorry she was, said she'd been lost and scared, and didn't think she deserved someone like me. But deep down, I started to suspect something else. That Haley wasn't crying because she lost me. She was crying because she lost the version of herself she wanted to be seen as. And that realization? That changed everything. Counseling was like tearing off a scab every week and pretending the wound underneath was smaller than it really was. Haley was committed. I'll give her that. She showed up every time. She answered the therapist's questions. She didn't hide behind pretty words, at least not most of the time. She admitted to things I hadn't even asked about. Little moments. Times when she almost called him on my birthday. When she almost told me the truth but chose not to because we were doing so well. But that just made it worse. It meant she knew what she was doing every step of the way. This wasn't some whirlwind of emotions she got swept up in. It was cold, thought out, managed, planned. The therapist asked me, during our third session, "Do you still love her?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I did. Because yes, I still loved her. And that felt like the biggest betrayal of all. I hated that part of me. The part that missed her laugh. The way she used to fall asleep on my chest during Sunday afternoon movies. The way she kissed me on the cheek without thinking, just passing by in the kitchen. Those memories weren't gone. They were still in me, like tattoos I couldn't scrub off. But now, every one of those moments was infected, tainted, and that love I still felt, it wasn't pure anymore. It was tangled in rage, sadness, shame. I couldn't look at her without thinking, "You let someone else in our bed," while I was out there praying I'd live to see you again. One night, I tried to write a letter, something raw and honest, something I could give her or maybe just read aloud in session. But the words wouldn't come out clean. Instead, it looked like this. "You said you loved me, but love doesn't lie for a year. Love doesn't make you feel like a fool in your own home. Love doesn't say forever and then throw it away because it got lonely. You didn't love me. You loved the way I loved you." I never gave it to her. I folded it up and stuck it in the back of my sock drawer, like maybe one day I'd burn it or bury it or send it in the mail and never come back. Meanwhile, Haley kept acting like we were in recovery mode. Like if she could just prove how sorry she was, I'd somehow forget the details, the specifics. Like I'd erase the image of her and Kyle together if she made me pancakes on Sunday or held my hand on the walk to the car. But love doesn't come back just because someone wants it to. Trust doesn't rebuild itself just because someone's crying and making promises. And one night, after a particularly quiet dinner, she turned to me and said, "You don't touch me anymore." It wasn't angry, just wounded, but it made something snap in me. I looked at her and said, "You handed that part of me to someone else." She didn't speak. She just looked away, and in that moment, I think she understood. Maybe for the first time. She hadn't just cheated. She had killed something between us. Quietly, repeatedly. And now she wanted to pretend it could be resurrected. But the man I was before, he didn't live here anymore. I started spending more time outside the house. Not with anyone else, just alone. Drives with no destination. Sitting in the parking lot behind the gym long after the workout was over. Going to the grocery store and walking every aisle without buying much. I told Haley I needed space, and to her credit, she didn't press. But I could feel her watching me when I came home late, wondering if I was doing what she had done. Funny, isn't it? You get betrayed, and suddenly you're the one under silent suspicion. At some point during one of those long drives, I realized something else. I wasn't angry the way I had expected to be. Not anymore. The rage had burned out. What replaced it was worse. It was quiet. It was the kind of quiet that feels like being in a room where the clock stopped ticking. No sound, no life, just stillness that stretches out into forever. Haley tried to fill it with kindness. Little notes on the fridge. Fresh coffee in a travel mug when I left. She bought a new comforter for our bed, as if changing the sheets could wash away what happened between them. But nothing landed. I saw her trying. I saw the pain in her. But I also saw the shift. The guilt was still there, sure. But something darker had crept in: resentment. I heard it in her voice one night after counseling, when I told her I didn't think I was ready to move back into the bedroom. "You're punishing me," she said flatly. "No," I said. "I'm surviving you." She scoffed, bitter. "How long am I supposed to pay for this?" That was the moment, that exact sentence. Because it wasn't, "How long do I need to show you I care?" or "How long do we need to rebuild this?" It was pay. Like her remorse was a transaction. Like she deserved a finish line for the damage she caused. I stared at her for a long time, and for once, she couldn't hold my gaze. I went back out to the porch that night. Same spot, same cold air, same silence. And I knew, really knew, that no amount of therapy or notes or pancakes or tears could bring back what I lost. It wasn't just her I couldn't forgive. It was me, for believing the fantasy, for holding on too long, for thinking love alone could hold up a roof when the beams had rotted out. I remember sitting out there and whispering to myself, "It's over," just to hear how it sounded. And weirdly, it didn't feel like a death. It felt like breathing for the first time in months. I told her a week later. I waited until a quiet Sunday morning. The sky was gray, the kind that makes the whole world feel muted. She was in the kitchen, wearing one of my old sweatshirts, pouring cereal into a bowl like it was just any other day. I watched her for a minute, memorizing the normalcy of it all. Then I said, "We need to talk." She froze, spoon in midair. And I think she knew. We sat across from each other at the table. The same table where we'd eaten our first dinner as husband and wife, where we'd planned vacations, laughed over spilled wine, sat with bills and takeout and late-night confessions. Now it was a courtroom. "I can't keep doing this," I said. "I've tried, but I'm not the same person anymore. And I don't think we can come back from this." She stared at me, blinking fast, like she was waiting for the punchline, waiting for the walk back. But I stayed still. "Please," she whispered. "We're finally making progress. We've come so far." I nodded. "But it's not we anymore. It's just me dragging this thing uphill while you ask when we're gonna reach the top." Tears came. Hard, fast. She covered her mouth like that would somehow stop the heartbreak from spilling out. "I don't want to lose you," she said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed she meant it. But sometimes, meaning it isn't enough. "I already lost myself," I said. "And I need to find him again." She begged, pleaded, said we could take a break, not end it completely. Said we owed it to our vows, to the history, to the love. But love isn't enough when it's been buried under lies. And even though I knew it would break both of us, I also knew the house we'd built was too damaged to fix. I started sleeping at a friend's place after that. Not Kyle's. Never again. Funny enough, it was Jason, an old buddy from Basic who lived 2 towns over. We hadn't been close in years, but when I texted him that I needed a place to crash, he said, "I've got a couch and cold beer." Doors unlocked. That first night at his place, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel relief. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the quiet hum of a house that had no memories in it. No ghosts. No photos on the fridge. Just silence. And for once, that silence wasn't suffocating. It felt clean. It's strange. The things you remember after it's over. Not the big stuff. Not the airport goodbyes or the shouting matches. What sticks with you are the quiet, ordinary things. The way she used to hum when she folded laundry. The little smile she gave me when we passed each other in the hallway. The half-full coffee cup she always forgot on the windowsill. They haunt you. Not because they were special, but because they were part of the life you thought you had. I stayed at Jason's for nearly a month. He never asked too many questions. Just handed me a beer after work and turned on the game. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. That kind of silence felt different, peaceful, not loaded. I hadn't realized how much I missed just existing without walking on emotional eggshells. Haley texted less and less. At first, it was constant. "I miss you. Please let me prove I can be better. What if this is just a rough chapter in a long book?" Then it trickled down to one-liners. "Hope you're okay. Still love you." And eventually, nothing. She must have known. I didn't block her. I didn't lash out. I just didn't respond. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because there was nothing left to say. No combination of words could rewind the clock or rebuild the trust she'd torn apart in silence while smiling in my face. The divorce wasn't messy. No screaming. No fights over who gets what. I didn't care about the furniture or the car. I just wanted peace. And she finally understood that. We signed the papers on a cold Tuesday morning. She wore a gray sweater. Her hair was up. She looked tired. She asked me one question before we left the lawyer's office. "Do you think we ever had something real?" I took a breath. Thought about that airport hug. The care packages. The first time she kissed me in the rain outside my parents' place. The look she gave me when I surprised her with a puppy on our anniversary. And I said, "Yeah, I do." "But you let it die." She nodded. Didn't argue. Just walked to her car, pulled away, and didn't look back. I stood there for a while. Then I went home, not to Jason's, but to a new place I just signed the lease on. Small, clean, with no memories in the walls. I bought a couch that didn't remind me of anyone, cooked a simple dinner, sat in the quiet and listened to the hum of a different fridge. That night, I finally slept through without waking up in a sweat. But the dreams still came. Only now, they weren't about her. They were about me. The version of me before the betrayal, before the silence, before the shame. And I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. Sometimes I still think about her. Not often, not with anger, just as a name in a chapter I've closed. I don't hate her anymore. I don't even wish things had gone differently. What happened taught me something I wouldn't have learned otherwise. Love isn't always enough, and loyalty, real, deep loyalty, isn't a given just because you wore rings and said vows. And Kyle? Haven't spoken to him since. Probably never will. Some betrayals don't deserve a second look. People ask me if I'd ever take her back, if I'd forgive. I already did, quietly. Not for her, but for me. Because healing isn't about getting even. It's about finally choosing yourself.